Hey, what is up, YouTube? Kolst here. So, I'm not going to try to be theatric in this video, no music. I'm going to talk more naturally sometimes than I even normally do because this is actually a pretty serious video. So, currently, if you're not aware, dual class is going on in Arena. This really should be a celebration, an exciting time for Arena. However, this event seems to be really getting overshadowed by a couple problems that we're experiencing in the arena right now. I haven't actually played enough myself yet for these problems to really start to bother me yet, but I actually watch a lot of other arena creators as well, and I can just tell that's already starting to really get to them within like a day or two, and it's really a unanimous response. So I just wanted to talk about this. So some of these problems have been building up over the last few months and the last couple of set releases, but a lot of this really got out of control just with this last release and rotation as well, particularly a couple of the new cards really causing some problems. And really, if you're wondering, this really has nothing to do with dual class itself. Dual class is functioning totally fine, but that's the thing, is that none of these problems are going to go away once the dual class is ending. So that's why I feel like it was really important for me to make this video as soon as possible. Because this is something where really we're going to need Blizzard to actually make some kind of intervention here, because this stuff just isn't going to go away. So with that, let's just get right into what these problems actually are. So the first problem is related basically entirely around one particular card which was printed, which is the new legendary Goliath Sneed's Masterpiece. So I'm not going to explain exactly what this card does. You're probably aware already, but it's basically a super power crept version of Twin Tyrant. It actually makes Twin Tyrant look like actual dog shit in comparison. If you're not familiar, like Twin Tyrant plagued the arena for like 6 months while it was in. It actually personally made me quit the game for like 3 months. That's how, crazy it was. But if you want to hear more, I did talk about in the Legend card review I did. But the point is, this card is performing at the level of Ysera the Dreamer, which is, was previously by far the best arena card ever, basically. And so one thing that, one people are going to say is like, well, having a card be at the power level of Ysera or at the power level of Goliath Needs Masterpiece isn't innately a problem, especially if it's a legendary. I mean, at least you don't lose too often to it, right? However, I would argue that these things are extremely frustrating because Sneed is just such an insane tempo swing. Particularly Sarah, I find extremely frustrating just because once you hear that battle cry, you know that essentially the function of the card is you're never going to be able to stick a minion on board again, and it's just complete hopelessness, right? And that's what you want to be avoiding in a card game like this, in my opinion. But again, like, at least if it's rare, I mean, at least the person playing gets to have fun, so maybe that's okay, right? But then here's the problem with Goliath in particular. If you notice Goliath, it is a mech, and there is one particular card which discovers mechs, which is a Deep Run Engineer. So again, I went into full depth of this in the card review, but there are only 10 neutral mechs in the game is the big issue. So the odds, if you get to choose between three of them, that means you have a 3 out of 10 chance of hitting Goliath. And Deeper Engineer currently is actually the most common neutral card in Arena, period, right now. So basically Goliath, which should be, the super rare occurrence, is all over the place. So generally, I believe I made a video back in the day about this, but I tend to very avidly defend the discover mechanic. I think it's very good, but even myself, like I would admit that, there is a problem you have here when you have such a narrow discover pool. When you have such a narrow set of options, because it creates this kind of risk that, if you happen to introduce something like a Goliath into the discover pool, then it just creates this kind of unhealthy situation where you play this card and you just hope it wins you the game. Another like kind of similar example is like, with Illidari studies, because there just aren't that many outcast cards, and one of them happens to be Kurtrus, and man, I've had a lot of 12-win runs carried by studies into Kurtrus. And the thing is that there's just not that much skill to it, at least with studies into Kurtrus, timing it and risk assessment, there's something there. But with Deeper Engineer, like you're gonna play it and you just hope you get Goliath. Whenever you can, you just hope you get Goliath. It's just not very interesting. And I will say I've been seeing some people say anecdotally they thought that Goliath had actually been showing up more than 30%. Like they actually thought it felt like closer to 50% of the time. I don't know if that's true. We don't have any confirmation about, if Blizzard messes with rates like that in the Discover pool. I'd be kind of surprised, but it's very possible. Who knows, really? And well, so anyway, that was just problem number one. Now, problem two is another card which was introduced very recently, which is Galaka Glutton. So Galaka Glutton, if you're not familiar, we call these kind of cards like hate cards, quote unquote. So this is just a card that destroys a beast, and you get like really crazy upside, way more tempo than you're supposed to get out of a card. So these kinds of cards definitely have a place in card games, especially in like constructed. They kind of, you can put these kind of cards in to limit the potential of like a certain strategy. If a certain weapon deck is getting too strong, you can put weapon removal in, right? If some kind of beast deck is getting too strong, you put beast removal in. Pirate decks are getting too strong, maybe like right now, you could put pirate removal in. But here's the problem is that in Arena, this kind of thing doesn't really apply. You especially now that there's no drafting algorithm, you're just essentially getting random cards against each other. You kind of just have to take the best card, and some of them are just happen to be beasts. And one of the things that particularly makes it an especially big issue right now is that the set that just happened to rotate in is Journey to Ungoro, which is extremely, extremely beast heavy. From what I remember I was looking at like the total number of cards. There's like 1,078 arena cards in the game, and it was something like 80 of them are beasts. It's just like a crazy high percentage. So like the average deck is going to have like 2 or 3 beasts in it. So this thing is just going to hit way more consistently than it should, which means that essentially you're not really making a mistake in picking it, which just means it's going to be all over the place. And again, it's just creating this kind of, feedback loop of essentially toxicness for Arena. But, you could add something in the past like Hungry Crab. Hungry Crab was in Arena for years and years, but it was never really a problem just because it was an epic for one. Galaka Glutton is a common, but also it just wasn't really a pickable card. There were enough Murlocs to justify it, so it was never really a problem. But here, you have it's a common, it's everything. So it's just a much bigger issue. And part of what made this so predictable, frankly, was just the fact that the last time this happened, the last time they printed a hate card like this that was tribe based was Dragon Maw Poacher. And when Dragon Maw Poacher was printed, there was a very quick riot on Reddit and other places to get it removed, and it was swiftly banned from Arena, as it should have been. And I think for a card like this, it's very clear to me that, banning is the right thing to do. And one point to also bring up is whenever, Blizzard bans a card from Arena, they don't really remove the card. If you weren't aware, they actually just remove it from the draft. It is still possible to randomly generate it. So, for a card like Runaway Blackwing, which is a dragon, you can still generate it with any dragon discover, but like for something like this, if you can discover like a battle cry, you can still generate it. And to me, that just doesn't make any sense personally. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think, but it's like, I just don't understand. If this is a card that you've decided is removed from the game because it's too toxic for the mode, just because of the way Arena works, why on earth would you allow for it to be generated randomly? This doesn't make any sense. There's been like kind of the precedent that, they've removed things from draft, but they haven't manipulated the ability to generate things through other means. And I think at this point, it's just time for that to change, that they just need to, it doesn't make any sense for these things to continue to be generated. And I think with Goliath, for example, like we need to start really looking into actually manipulating these kind of random generations and discovers. So the result of all these problems, at least in how it feels, but I think also in actuality as well, I've been watching myself in my few runs, but also just every other streamer seems to be really, really struggling. People that were like former #1 on the leaderboard, doing like 4-win average and stuff, like it just seems like no one is doing well right now. Because games are being kind of turned into a coin flip, essentially. Just these cards that produce too much of a swing and essentially too undeserved of a swing that don't require any skill, it just really reduces the skill of the game mode, turns it more into a coin flip. So if you're going to be playing a card game like this, like it seems natural, you want to feel like your decisions matter, like you're being rewarded for your decision, and hopefully, at least more often than not, I know that, a feature of these games is that, sometimes lesser skilled players are able to win. That's part of why RNG exists in the game. It's not chess, right? But still, you want to be rewarded for your decision. You don't just want to be rewarded because you happen to have the right card, which might just be, some broken card that you didn't even really get. You didn't really choose to put in your deck even, right? Because this isn't constructed. It's just, it was given to you and you happen to have it at the right time. So with this, I want to talk about one thing, which I think gives kind of some insight into potentially how Blizzard, what they're thinking and how they're viewing these kind of cards. So sometimes it's a little difficult to know exactly what Blizzard's doing because, sometimes it seems like they've kind of gone the direction of being less transparent in a lot of cases, like there's some issues with like matchmaking, which is, whole other topic for another video, but like something that can happen is like you can be at like 1-0 and go against someone, or you can be 0-2 and go against someone at 1-0, and that looks pretty unfair. But like Blizzard doesn't think it's that unfair, and if you don't get to see what your opponent's win loss is, you just don't know, right? So you're not going to be able to complain about it. But a thing that we are able to see from third-party tools that they do mess with is the offering rate of individual cards. So in that, this impacts cards across all rarities. There are just certain cards that tend to appear way more often than others for really no really good reason. So again, like I'm pulling up HS Replay here. These are just all of the neutral legendaries right here. So again, like we can't see directly how much they're being offered in the draft exactly, but for a card that is really, really good, you're pretty much picking it every time you see it. So it's the percentage of dex rate is going to be a very good indicator for how much is showing up in draft. And with this, you can see like there are some very good cards, very, very good legendaries, like, something like Deathwing or Onyxia, for example, or Talon Fordring even, White Mane. All these are, a lot of these are really good. There's a lot of bad legendaries, so you're often only going to have one good choice. So a lot of these are going to be picked almost every time. Even Lich King down here. But the outlier we see here is that there are two right at the top, which are Lady Prestor and Goliath, which, these are cards that are appearing more than Ysera. So, like, you shouldn't be picking, well, maybe Goliath you might actually pick over Ysera, but, that Ysera, unless it's against, like, literally exactly Goliath, you're going to pick it every time you see it. So you're seeing that a card like Goliath, not only, this is a card that people are already starting to complain about like crazy, but this card actually has, what this shows is it has an actual offering bonus. So not only, does Blizzard not see this card as a problem, they actually saw it as something that they are willing to promote. Lady Prestor, again, has been a card, which is, admittedly, Lady Prestor is an especially fun card, but also it's the most ridiculous level of RNG as well. And cards like Ysera and even, Varian and Lich King, these are very RNG heavy cards that, aren't exactly, the most skill promoting cards for a format like Arena. So I feel like the takeaway from this, because we can see that these cards are not only are they not getting banned or anything, like they're actually being actively promoted by Blizzard. So it just seems like there's a clear disconnect between how Blizzard wants this Arena to be and how people that actually play Arena want Arena to be. But I'd be interested to hear your feedback as far as this. Like, are we? Am I just the crazy hardcore shouting into the void? Does everyone else see it differently, or do you agree with this? I'd be interested to know in the comment section below. And I guess one thing I should mention is I haven't really presented too many solutions. Obviously, banning cards, manipulating the Discover pool, removing like Goliath or something from Discover, these are options. But there's a lot of things, honestly, that Blizzard could do. And, if they were interested in having an open discussion about it, I would obviously be totally willing. And I'm sure many other people in the Arena community have already expressed interest in that as well. Because the goal really isn't to remove everything interesting from Arena. It's just that we want Arena to feel like an engaging and interactive game format and less like, the direction it's been moving, which is more towards a slot machine. And if you agree, don't forget to, of course, like the video and maybe even share it on social media. Who knows? I usually don't ask for shares, but and subscribe if you are interested in this kind of Arena content. I should probably say very explicitly, please do not harass the devs, because we want to have as much open communication as possible. And, if you go around flaming the devs, it's going to accomplish the exact opposite. So please don't. But with that, I think that's all I wanted to say. Thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. By the way, I've heard the requests to do a video about the cards rotating in. I simply haven't had time. If you're not aware, I work full-time on top of, creating Arena content through multiple platforms, and work's been especially crazy lately, so I just haven't been able to. So maybe this weekend, like towards the end of Dual Class, if Dual Class is ending, we actually don't know if Blizzard's listening, please. Dual class is actually gonna go for more than a week or not, because we still don't 100% know. But yeah, that would be the plan. But yeah, thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. We will see you guys in the next one.